So last time we talked about comparing all 6 tanks in dungeons, and this week we tried to do just that. We had the latest dungeon testing include the other side, or the other side, however you want to say it. It is the Samedi dungeon. If you haven't seen that stream, I would definitely go check it out. This dungeon is something special, honestly. And again, we saw some really cool things with tanks. Unfortunately, the queues are just ridiculous. There's basically like at any given time, there's like less than 20 people on the alpha still. They really just need to invite more people, but they don't seem to be interested in doing that for whatever reason. Maybe because it had something to do with that announcement that got canceled, but regardless, you basically have to wait. Like this, you literally have to try to convince people to do the dungeon if you want to get in. But we did test it on Blood and Brewmaster and Warrior, which those are my 3 tanks right now, like the top 3. So I was really glad to see that. We got logs; those are going to be in the description. You can check them out. Let's go over the notable things from all 3 tanks, okay, in the dungeon. And then there's one other thing that we definitely want to talk about. So Blood DK's most notable thing in the dungeon was the fact that they could still mind control and sacrifice things that they mind controlled. A control undead, still usable on targets in dungeons, elites, undead elites in dungeons, and I could sacrifice them. So I was able to grab one, immediately kill it, take another one. I can't that cannot go live that way, right? Like let's think about what the possibility of that going live that way is, right? But like there's these things that look like bugs that have been bugged for so long that it's hard to believe that they are, considering how fast some of the other bugs, like the monk bugs that we had in build 1, that was fixed in build 2, right? So it's like it's hard. I don't know what to think about the situation. But anyway, besides that, maybe the most noticeable thing after that was the fact that actually I was kind of disappointed with Blood DK's performance in that dungeon. Now I do think a lot of it in comparison was because I was playing this character, kind of grown like an emotional attachment to this Tauren, and he's not max level, so he's missing like a key spell, which is Blood Tap. The Rune Tap being off the GCD, which happened last build. We didn't make a video, but yeah, if Rune Tap is now off the GCD, which is great. It's a lot more usable now, of course. I think it's probably, yeah, I'm surprised. I'll be surprised if all of this stuff goes live the way the kit is. But the main thing is that I did feel like I had a lot of, I was a little squishy, let's put it this way. And with low haste, it was hard to get caught up, man. But we were doing a lot of soloing, so that presence was in my mind a lot. And while we were waiting for the queue, we were soloing the dungeon, which was fun. But yeah, even when we went into the dungeon properly, I did feel like I did really need to use my CDs, and I have to say, stacking the actual pet, like just not the exploity thing that we're talking about, like getting a pet and then making it explode and healing me for 25% of my health, that saved me a lot throughout the dungeon. So a lot of these new tools do feel like very, very powerful. And even though I was still playing them poorly, mostly because I don't have like weak ores or anything to track CDs, it's still much more powerful than it is in BFA one or the other. But I was surprised compared to the other 2 tanks; they took a lot of damage. So next up was Brew Master. We tested Brew Master, and I immediately found that Brew Master's defense is just, I mean, it's unparalleled. Honestly, like there's this immediately really big pack, 5 mobs, one really tough mob. That shield is ridiculous, and it expires probably every time I use it. I would be surprised if it ever was consumed entirely in that normal dungeon, but it probably was a couple times maybe. But yeah, it's ridiculous, and the CD is short, and then you potentially might get even shorter. However haste or whatever works with Brewmaster over the years. So I just don't know, man. I have to feel like Brewmaster is just the kind of king of defense right now. But I did have a lot of problems with offense. If you look at their offense, I felt like I only really did good AoE damage when Exploding Keg was up. And in general, I just did I don't know, it's hard to compare on the logs. I'm not going to say one thing or the other, but like you could take a look at them, take a look at the damage I did pack to pack. I think the problem with the damage is that it's high, but it's kind of like herky jerky, and it's like that in BFA too, where pretty much 50% of your damage is going to come from things that have a CD. So if you don't have those things available for the first global of the pack, the mobs are kind of all running around. You know what I mean? And I'm not really a big fan of that, to be honest. It doesn't particularly encourage me, but I do think Brew Master is in a much better like kit place offensively, and of course defensively. I mean, it's hard to think that they got better than they were in BFA, but they did. They got better, so I was really impressed with that. And also, one of the biggest things about Brewmaster that I noticed is that Touch of Death is ridiculous in 5-mans. In fact, at this point, I would have to say that they are definitely like. I don't want to talk about this, but if I had to, I would say Brewmaster is the best tank for 5-mans right now because Touch of Death is like literally like deleting mobs. And it's a 3-minute CD, but I used it to some substantial benefit on the last boss in there. And the last boss, you have to split up and kill these 4 kind of creatures that are holding for Samedi. And I literally just like one-shot one. Like I went up to it, Touch of Death, done. That's like a fight mechanic that's meant to be handled by multiple people. I just rolled over to it, kill it with, I think I like Keg Smash, Breath of Fire, Touch of Death. That's it. Okay, so that's pretty strong, right? So anyway, yeah, Brewmaster's kit is just looking absurd right now. And Clash is really fun too. Look, X is another type of interrupt. So then we checked out Prot Warrior, or Prot Paladin. Sorry, then we checked out Prot Paladin. And I have to say, Prot Paladin is, they're the tank I really, really, really want to play going forward. Because they are so fun as like a utility tank. You got to look at this log. The amount of healing I did with Word of Glory and not on myself. I cast a lot of Word of Glories, and 50% of the healing I did in the dungeon was on somebody else other than me. And I freaking love that. That is so fun. I love the concept. It's just so fun to me. I don't know why. I love the idea, and I love the fact that like a tank could be a support role. And I think that's kind of because back in MOP, when I first kind of started falling in love with tanks, there was like a lot of different ways that tanks were like support roles. And even in Dragon Soul, if you remember all the tier sets, where they were kind of like support roles. Now, you're going to love what we talk about next, okay? But Prot Pally is, at least in my opinion, the best support tank right now. There's not really any other tanks to compare it to, but they have such an insane utility kit anyway. And if they are actually going to be able to put out a lot of this healing, it's just crazy to me. I don't know what to think. We talked about this on stream, and like one commenter said like, yes, but you're not doing any defense or any actual like healing to yourself. And it's like, yeah, you're right, obviously, but I don't think that's a bad thing. Like I don't look at that as a detriment. Like there's times if I could Death Strike and heal somebody else in the group as a blood DK, I would do that probably quite a lot. You know what I mean? And especially in raids, this is the big thing people are overlooking. Maybe in raids, when you got 2 tanks, you got a prop pally who could maybe do like maybe like 30 to 40% of what a healer can do. I don't know. There's a lot of talents, we talked about it, that make the holy power situation more active, more available. So inside these, like the new the new Holy Avenger or something, I can't remember the name of the spell, but yeah, whatever the spell is that gives you, every time you use a spell that gives you holy power, it gives you 3 holy power. Inside that CD, you could probably do more healing to the group than any other healer in the game. I mean, I don't see how you couldn't. Based on the size of these heals that I was throwing out, I'm flabbergasted, as you can tell. So anyway, tell me what you think about that concept. All 3 of those tanks were very fun. Unfortunately, we didn't get to test Vengeance or Bear or Prot Warrior, but I mean, that was almost 5 hours, and we only got to do 3 dungeons. Only got to enter 3 dungeons. So in the future, guys, definitely want to do this more. I want to just log on and just spam dungeons, and really, really want to do Mythic Plus, man. When Mythic Plus is finally tested, a lot of people are like, this is getting a little bit weird now. A lot of people are like, they need to just bring out Mythic Plus like right now. It needs testing. We can't have the same. It's like, dude, we don't even have all the dungeons yet. Like, relax. I know people want. I mean, I don't know. Like, if Mythic Plus was out now, I mean, I guess that would be cool and all. But like, we're not even max level. We don't even have any of the max level. I mean, I can't even use a Covenant in a dungeon yet. So I think Mythic Plus is going to be a long while away. But I tell you, when it does come out, I want to hit that seriously. Like, I want to convert the channel from BFA Mythic Plus 4 days a week to Shadowlands Mythic Plus, maybe like 2 or 3 days a week. So we'll see. That's when things are going to really heat up. Hopefully we can get a lot more testing then. But right now we're kind of just doing what we can. Now, there's some other things to talk about. Okay. first things first, there was a lot of potential data mining and stuff that is worth checking out. So we're going to take a look at that now really quick too. So yeah, a lot of changes to Warrior. If you haven't seen it, I tested them out, and frankly, they just don't. I don't know. I'm not a big Warrior, like a DPS spec fan, that is. So they didn't really resonate with me. But there was a fair amount of changes to Protection Warrior too, and there's going to be another interesting thing coming up. So, Crackling Thunder. No longer just reduces or increases the radius of Thunderclap. It also makes the movement speed an additional 10%. So, like, one of the things Prot Warrior is losing that a lot of people use right now in Shadowland or BFA is what was it called? Conflict Major. Gives the PvP talent, makes the big mobility situation happen better for them. So that's cool. Dragon Roar got buffed. I mean, I don't. Dragon Roar critically strikes for 3 times normal damage. And doesn't Dragon Roar always crit or something? I don't know. It used to be that way. I guess it's not that way anymore. But either way, I mean that's a potential like big DPS gain. I mean, I don't really know what row that's even on, to be honest. But it's also had the CD shortened a bit, so maybe that's a good thing for Prot Warrior. I mean, what would that spell be good for? Snap Threat. If Blood DK had Dragon Roar, that would probably be a great talent. But for Prot Warrior, I don't feel like they need Snap Threat, right? I don't know. But then this is might be the coolest one. It's really not like that big of a change, but Ravager, chases nearby enemies, inflicting blah blah blah. It gives wait, does it not give parry anymore? I don't know. Yes, I guess it doesn't anymore. Oh geez. Well, I didn't actually test this in game, but that's a weird change if it doesn't give parry anymore. Because that was like maybe one of their strongest defensive talents in the game. That's a lot of parry. But anyway, it's kind of cool to see it happen. Ravager kind of like, it first of all apparently uses your weapon too. So whatever weapon you have on, you throw that, kind of spins and chases the guy. So it's pretty cool concept. But yeah, if that doesn't give a wow, I didn't even realize that it doesn't give parry anymore. That's a big nerf. That's a huge nerf. But they nerfed the CD of it. So now, I mean, I guess what they did was did they buff the damage? It's now it used to be 7 seconds and now it's 12 seconds. Hits up to 8 targets. And it used to be so they increased the amount it lasts and it kind of chases the enemy. So it's going to do way more damage than it used to, seemingly. But they removed the defensive element to it. I guess I don't know. I'd be surprised if that actually happened. So let me know what you think. But anyway, this is what you want to see. Okay, look at this. Now let's talk a little bit about this. So this is a post on Wildhide. You can check it out. I don't know how much more there might be that might eventually be data mined. But you see it says here other classes are mentioned, but their spells and legendaries are not implemented yet, such as Demon Hunter. So we're talking about legendaries. This is the first time in this like tank series that we've done that we're going to actually talk about legendaries. This is going to be a core fundament of our max level power. Think of essences, think of Azerite power, think of even maybe even corruption in some way, but realistically it's definitely more like essences and probably Azerite power put together. Okay, I don't want to talk about how it's acquired, but long story short, it's like a completely different system than we've ever had. You're gonna like kind of earn them like you earned essences, and then you're gonna take them to like a blacksmith type dude and he's gonna put them on your gear or something like that. That's what it sounds like. That's how it sounds it's gonna work. It's not testable yet. But when it is, this is going to be the number one thing besides Mythic Plus that I want to test, because I'm going to show you something really, really cool. Blood DK, really all DK actually. So we're going to look at these ones too. But yeah, all DK got some really cool ones. You should take a look at this if you're interested in the other DK specs. But we're going to go through all of these. And actually, yeah, DK has the best data mining ones so far. So I'm going to tell you what, if any of these go live, this is going to be freaking awesome. I don't know how it's going to work switching between them, but my God, there's so many good ones. So here we go. General, this is assumingly all DK specs can use these on their legendaries. Your Frost Fever, Blood Plague, and Virulent Plague also apply the other 2 diseases. And then I guess, their Wowhead's like quoting an original source, because like basically like the main feature here is that it's kind of bringing in stuff from the old days. So we're going to talk about that too in a second. But anyway, Super Strain, this is actually a plague that you, or whatever, like a power that you get from Anima, the Anima powers from Torghast. and I tried it out in Torghast, and my God, it was cool. It was really neat, but I mean, I don't know. I don't think those two diseases do that much. I don't actually know, but you never know. That's an interesting one. Potentially a huge DPS gain, maybe, because you're spreading 3 diseases, especially with Rune Weapon. I'd be interested to see how that works with Dancing Rune Weapon. But anyway, this one is okay. Let's talk. Pheromones. You and your minions gain 10% haste while you're inside your D&D, and enemies damaged by your death and decay have a chance to cower in place for 3 seconds. Now, this might be, for me at least, as a Death Knight and following the history of DK, this might be potentially the most overpowered thing that ever existed. And if it ever came back in any fashion, I think it would be, they would just be the best tank. Now, for 5-mans, that is. Now, it used to work really often. Like it was an old talent, Tremble Before Me. It was, I guess it was a talent. It was something that, I thought it was like a glyph or something in the old days. I don't know. In Wrath, DKs used to be able to put D&D down, and it would constantly kind of like fluctuate. Like the mobs would constantly like try to like fear. They would get feared, and then they try to attack again, but like they get feared again, and like it was almost like they were incapacitated for the entirety of the D&D. Now, I think a lot of that is maybe my faulty memory, or also just like the spell working in random ways. But I distinctly remember like whole packs that would just kind of not do anything because they were constantly getting in and out of the fear animation while D&D was down. D&D used to work a lot different. A lot's changed since then, so I don't expect that to happen. But I'll tell you what, one of the things that I love the most about bringing an elemental shaman to my Mythic plus 5-mans is when they accidentally knock down key abilities that are not able to be interrupted, or that are, not high priority interrupts, and they get interrupted anyway. That is the best possible defensive thing in the game for a Blood DK. And I have to say, I love seeing this talent potentially return in this legendary power. So, and 10% haste, I mean, that's a freaking slam dunk at the beginning of the expansion, if you ask me. That one sounds awesome, and I can't wait to talk about that more, hopefully in the future. Anyway, Death's Embrace increases the duration of anti-magic shell by 100%, and any damage it absorbs heals you. Okay, so that is, of course, Arcarus's Drapes. Now, if you remember in Legion, Arcarus's Drapes were probably the most important situational legendary. You almost never used it unless there was a week like Necrotic where you always used it. And the thing about it was, it used to be magic Necrotic, so you used to be able to guaranteed drop Necrotic with AMS, because it would last, AMS would last the same duration as Necrotic. That no longer obviously exists. Necrotic is physical damage, but I could easily see this type of legendary being extremely powerful in certain raids. I don't, I don't know how swapping those is going to work. Realistically, probably not going to be a play that you make in 5-mans, just because there's going to be a lot of physical damage as well, with other essences or other legendaries probably being way more valuable for that. But I love the concept. Love seeing it say it heals you again, because that is just like, it was so electric when you got a good AMS out with that. So anyway, Grip of the Everlasting. Now, basically, it's just there's a talent right now. If you have the PvP talent, if you have Conflict Mage on, you get 2 death grips. I think they're just kind of trying to keep that in there somewhere. It's basically the same thing. I mean, it's just worse, obviously a worse version, because you don't have 2 actual charges. But 3 seconds after casting grip, you may cast the spell a second time without regard for its cooldown. And this came apparently from the 4-piece Mop DK Arena PvP set bonus. So I don't remember that, obviously, but it's cool. It's great. I mean, like a fight like Hive Mind, there's always going to be a fight where Death Knight shines because they can grip. And when you can grip more than once, then they really shine. Now, that is for all Death Knights. You see the difference? Right now, Blood DK has the PvP talent accessed by Conflict and Strife, but no other DK has that. It's just Blood DK, right? So, like, if you did, like, Mechatork, or you did, Hive Mind, these fights where they have a lot of grips required, these things become extremely powerful. Then you have DK specs on, like, as DPS. They kind of like, oh well, that's okay too. We'll have one of those. But now, if you had like one tank and one frost, you would have the same power potentially. If both of those were them, you'd have potentially 4 grips every time you needed any grips. So it's very, very, very powerful in very specific situations. But again, just like, Death's Embrace, probably useless for 5-mans. So anyway, let's take a look at the blood-specific ones now. Now, this is where, guys, these are like wet dream moments for me. I'm not going to lie about it, okay? I'm going to tell you right now. Brindor's, how you say that? Brindor's Might. If you played Legion, you would know that this was basically just the best legendary for most of the expansion, because it always, like every single time you death striked, it just always gave you 15% of the runic power spent back. So this was a big part of why Blood DK was so powerful, especially in the beginning of Legion. It was maybe probably the highest value legendary in the game for tanks. I mean, I don't really remember all of them. I know Bear had some crazy ones. But like, what other legendary is going to give you 15% of your runic power back every time you death strike? Like, that is so. I mean, that's really high value. So, and like the operative word is if it heals you for more than 10% of your maximum health. But for that to not happen, you basically have to have 0 versatility. I think the way it was described in Legion was like, if you even have like any versatility at all, because like the minimum it heals you for, it still says in game, right? Actually, now it just heals you the minimum of 10% of your health. I forgot they buffed it in Shadowlands or something. Or no, because I always mix this up. Hold on, let's go back to the game. I want to get this right. So right now, I'm going to show you the spell. Right now, says minimum 10% of your maximum health. I always get this wrong, and people corrected me in a couple videos ago. The reason it says minimum 10% of your health is because I have the talent Voracious. Okay, I'm gonna change the talent Voracious. I'm gonna change the death pack. You're gonna see it's back to 7% of your maximum health. But when you take the talent Voracious, it's a 20% increase to all the healing component of Death Strike. It doesn't make it heal for 20% more on top of what it normally does. It just increases all these values by 20%. So that's why it now says 30% and minimum 10%. I got that wrong a couple, like 2 months ago now at this point. Didn't want to get it wrong again. But anyway, one way or the other, this is going to always work, okay? So it's very, very powerful. Just out of the gate, it looks like probably the best one numerically. But that doesn't mean it's the most fun one. Let's talk about the rest. Okay, Crimson Rune Weapon. This is a very interesting one. When a charge of Bone Shield is consumed, the cooldown of Dancing Rune Weapon is reduced by 30 seconds. Additionally, when Dancing Rune Weapon fades, your rune regeneration rate is increased by 40% for 10 seconds. Now, first of all, I don't there's no way it's going to be 30 seconds. That's just not. I don't know what the original spell did. Apparently, it was from Blood DK Tier 21 2-piece. I mean, I don't remember this, so I don't really know. But, and I guess the 4-piece, like they basically combine a 2 and 4-piece together. Which is great and all. That sounds really powerful, but there's 0% chance that this is going to go live at 30 seconds. I mean, unless they're making the CD like twice as long or something like that. When a charge of Bone Shield is consumed, like obviously these numbers don't add up, but I'll tell you what, regardless, even if it's like 1 second, I mean, that would probably be what it would be, 1 second. That would still be very powerful, because you're going to get a lot more rune weapons. And if you know right now, we talked about the ineffable, that ineffable build. That was one of my favorite things about playing that, man, was more access to CDs, as Blood DK feels so much more fun. Maybe not, mathematically more powerful, but a lot of fun. It's just a lot of fun getting a lot of dancing rune weapons out. And that is going to help a lot even further if this continues. Rune regeneration rate increased. I mean, again, maybe the numbers are absurd, but either way, and now this starts to remind me a lot of Umbilicus Eternus, where you turned your best CD into something even better after it was over. A lot of people might look at that as not the right direction for defense for Blood DK. They might say you're at your strongest when you have that up, so you do not want to make it even stronger. I've never felt that way. I've always felt like if I could pull like really, really big inside a CD and be 100% safe, I would rather do that than pull and be uncomfortable when my big CD is up. Like, I want to go in with Dancing Rune Weapon and have, however many seconds of complete invulnerability, effectively. And that is going to get close to that, man. I'm telling you what. If you get a lot of rune weapons and that actually increases your rune regeneration rate by anywhere near that number, this is going to be insane. So, Let's keep going. Gorfiend's Domination. This is another really, again, another legendary from Legion that was looked at as, I mean, this is just so freaking powerful. It was so good for soloing. It was also really good for soloing because the legendary had Leech on it, which was the only legendary, I think, in the game that had Leech on it. But anyway, Heart Strike reduces the remaining cooldown of Vamp Blood by 2 seconds. So basically, you get 2 versions of Red Thirst. Now, I don't know how good this is going to be, but they've already buffed Red Thirst in Shadowlands. And if they're bringing this back and you're going to use this, you're going to probably have Vamp Blood up. I mean, like it's going to be up a lot. Let's not speculate, but it's going to be up a lot. So that's a really powerful one too. I love seeing that one again. But guys, this is the one. I literally fell in love with Blood DK right after this. I mop and I started playing DK a lot. And right after this was Cataclysm Tier 13 4-piece bonus. Your vampiric blood also affects all party members for 50% of the effect it has on you. This is the coolest. I don't care what the other ones do. Like, I love the concepts. They're so powerful. They're so fun. This is my favorite one. If this comes back in the game, this is my favorite one. I love the idea of being able to use Vamp Blood. Because now, we're not talking about the Vamp Blood from Cataclysm either. Again, this is a more accessible spell than it was back in the day. Red Thirst, and if you ever get to use 2 legendaries, which I don't know how that's going to work in the future, if it works anything like Legion, where you can wear 2 legendaries, Hard Strike, getting Vamp Blood up, maybe, another, say, like 10% more in a fight or something like that. On top of that, it's going to buff the party every time, 50% more healing. This is such a freaking powerful thing for raiding. I am so excited for this. And if any of this stuff goes live, I mean, this is so exciting. But we still have warrior ones. Let's take a quick look. There's not a lot for warriors, but they do gain the Leaper, the Timeless Stratagem. If you played in Legion, you will remember. Heroic Leap gains 2 additional charges, that's really nuts. Then they have one that's not ready for testing yet, it seems like. But then Misshapen Mirror. Spell Reflection lasts 200% longer and applies to your party. So they're calling it a Misshapen Mirror from Torghast Anima Power, which is definitely the case. But this is basically Mass Spell Reflect, which used to exist. And if you remember Mass Spell Reflect in WoD, you will also remember how overpowered it was. Now, of course, Spell Reflect in BFA is quite powerful. But tell me, as a warrior, do you feel like there's times when you would be benefiting from this? I don't actually know how often this would be beneficial. But all I know is Spell Reflection is a very, very, very powerful reason why warriors are in the position they're in BFA. And if it remains even a shred of itself in Shadowlands, and there's some actual benefit to reflecting, because basically in WoD, you could reflect like a volley, and it would like 5 times double it, you know what I mean? So, and anyway, Signet of Tormented Kings, activating Bladestorm, Recklessness, or Avatar randomly cast one of the other 2 abilities. So, I mean, that's insane. I mean, right now, of course, Avatar's up so often. Imagine Avatar and then you get Bladestorm, or either one. I mean, it doesn't matter which one you get. That is so freaking strong. But then they get 2 more down here, which are maybe some of the more interesting ones. Thunderlord. Each enemy you hit with Thunderclap reduces the remaining cooldown on Demoralizing Shout. So we actually talked about that in the last video. Seismical correctly pointed out that probably the biggest nerf to them was that Demoralizing Shout was off the anger management, talent. So that was the biggest thing. Demoralizing Shout's a big part of their defense, and without access to that, they're going to lose a lot. But so now here you go. Thunder God's Vigor's back. This was effectively, when it was removed, this is why they did what they did with Demoralizing Shout. So it's pretty cool to see that. But this one I think is maybe even more interesting to me. Shield Wall generates an additional 2 rage and reduces the remaining cooldown of Shield Wall by 4 seconds. So this is pretty cool, man. The walls fell. If you remember, this was looked at as a really good one in Legion. Of course, the main one was the Legendary Wrists, which kind of has just been baked into Indomitable now for Prot Warrior. I think that's the talent it's on. It's like, yeah, you get a bunch of healing now. But yeah, I don't know. So this is it. We got 2 tanks, obviously gushing over Prot Warrior or Blood DK, but I'm very, 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 very excited at this concept. So I'm going to leave you guys with this. Give your opinions, of course, and let me know what you think. Which ones you think are the strongest? What do you think I'm right and wrong about? What would you be more excited for? Let's put for me, I think the one I'm the most excited for is Pheromones, because I think in 5-mans this is going to be ridiculous again. But I think the one I would take for rating the most is probably this one, because if Vamp Blood is up as much as I think it's going to be in Shadowlands, we're going to get a lot of value out of this. Let's put it this way. But again, numbers might change. I mean, if they make that like 5%, then it's going to suck. I don't know. Anyway, but here's the thing. This is why this system is genius. This is why the system, I love this system. We haven't yet to test it, but I think it's going to be maybe the best version of this. This borrowed power system that they keep going on. What else? What else could they add? They could add a lot of things. They could do anything, right? How about Umbilicus Eternus coming back? One of my favorite spells. Still a channel-defining name. When you hear Umbilicus, I think you think a lot of things about the channel. So, they could bring anything back. They could bring all these different things back. They could bring talents or spells that have been removed. It seems like they're really interested in tier sets or legendaries from Legion. So what do you think they could add? Find something, go through the annals of history for your spec, and let's do it for other tanks too. Type below what you hope they will add for your spec. But as many as you want. If you want to list 100 of them, do it. Find ones that you think, my God, if this was back in the game, I would love this. And for me, those two things are already here for Blood Decay. The Fear, Tremble Before Me, one of the strongest talents that ever existed, I feel like, for any tank in a 5-man. And Vampiric Aura from the Cataclysm 4-set bonus. So thanks for watching, guys. What a great video. Really glad this build came. Unfortunately, we didn't get to test a lot of the dungeon stuff like we wanted to, but those logs are there, and hopefully we'll get to test that more in the future. If they finally invite new people, we'll have a lot more potential to play. So thanks for watching. We're going to see you guys in the next one.